My brother in the cramped living room of our apartment. I can still see him. He's 6 and I'm 9. His name was Brian, but we always called him Sonny. Just below the single narrow window there was a black and white television set, its oval screen no bigger than a ship's porthole. Next to the set was a small pile of quarters in an ashtray. To this day, I can see those quarters stream from the palm of Mom's hand, each quarter landing in the green glass ashtray. Clink, clink, clink. What I would now call the sound of dread. The sound of poverty. You see, we had to feed the quarters into the television because the set wasn't ours. It was rented. Mom would stand at the door, about to leave for her night job. On her way out, she'd remind me to lock the door. Her voice was always tired. She was working 2 jobs. As soon as she'd leave, I would race over to deadbolt the door. Twisting the knob, I'd hold my breath, double, even triple check. The door had to be securely locked. I'd turn toward the blank screen of the TV. I wanted to feed it those quarters right away. I longed to drown out the screech of tires from the street below, to silence the heavy tread of footsteps passing in the hallway outside our door. Instead, I'd stand next to the TV and wait for Sonny. I'd rub each quarter on the sleeve of my shirt, leaving behind dark gray and black streaks. Then I'd stack the quarters into neat piles on top of the TV, always aware of how many quarters were in each little silver silo. How much time we'd have for the TV that night. For a child, a few minutes can feel like an eternity, but still I'd wait. It was Sonny's job to start the TV. Sonny. Every so often I catch a glimpse of him and my grandkids, as they race onto an elevator to be the first to push the buttons, as they reach for a sugar cookie that I baked and covered with rainbow sprinkles, as they giggle when I lightly tug their noses. I'm remembering my brother today. If he could see me at my kitchen drawer wiping down the silverware, he'd just shake his head. He'd smile and he'd say, "What's the point of all this cleaning when it's just going to get messy again?" But these crumbs, disgusting. Collecting in this drawer behind my few forks and spoons. What is happening here? I never tolerated such a mess when I had a house full of kids. And now it's only me living in this small apartment. There's no one else to blame. With Sonny, I was always gathering his papers and packing his book bag for school. I'd lay clean clothes on his bed, line his shoes neatly beside the front door, make certain he used the toothbrush that I left on the bathroom sink, covered in a strip of toothpaste. Ugh, there goes my phone. I am not picking it up. That damn cell phone can ring all day. It can stay right where I left it, on my nightstand. I've already made my bed, polished my dresser, and vacuumed the bedroom carpet. I've no need to go back in there until bedtime. No more calls today, I've told myself. The news from the nursing home came early this morning. Forks and knives neatly stacked. Now the spoons. Oh, I've got to learn how to silence the ringer on that blasted cell phone. I'll ask one of my kids, but not today. They'll want to make arrangements for their father's service. The flowers and music. What's the hurry? Mark is dead. My husband is dead. Just slow down, that's what Sonny would say. I'd zip around our small childhood apartment picking up clothes from the bathroom floor or stacking dishes in the cupboard. My brother would take the broomstick from my hands and toss it aside. He'd stand in front of me and flash his palm at my face and say, "Please stop, I need your help." One look into his clear blue eyes, and I knew my chores could wait. He'd pull me over to the living room. His baseball cards would be scattered on our chipped coffee table. I'd separate and move the cards into smaller piles, organizing them by teams and players. Oh, look at this. Too many water stains on these teaspoons. Well, they are not going back into my drawer looking like this. Strange my dishwasher's rinse aid isn't doing the trick like it used to. If Mark were here, he'd bump me aside. He'd plunge his hands into the dishwasher to fix it. Mark, always with the tool belt, tinkering around the house, always moving from one project to the next. Maybe he and I weren't so different after all. What a shame, though. Awful cloudy film. Every single teaspoon? I'm going to have to rewash and polish each spoon by hand until every stain is gone, one by one. Sonny always helped in the kitchen whenever I asked. He'd take his time, folding napkins into triangles. His little tongue peeked out from his lips as he carefully tucked the napkins on the wrong side of our plates. I never corrected him. I am going to sit down. I'm feeling lightheaded. Over 50 years of marriage, yet it's my little brother I have before my eyes. Is there something wrong with me? My little brother. He's wearing the tan pajama set that is 4 times his size. His hair is still damp from his bath as he struts from the bathroom. He's parted his thick black hair sharply to the right like the little man he wants to be. The tan PJ bottoms are rolled at the waist and cuffed at the ankles. He is too young to know that he's wearing hand-me-downs because we are poor. A sheriff's star is pinned to his shirt beside the buttons, dangling from threads. It's pieced together from cardboard and aluminum foil. I made it. Why was I always doing things for him, for both of us? Sure, I always kept my own children busy with sports, crafts, or books, but with me and Sonny back then, it was different. It was about distractions. Distractions from the world beyond the bolted door of our crummy apartment. I would fold a scrap of paper into an airplane and leave it on my brother's nightstand. Under his pillow, I'd tuck a marble found on the playground. Once I traded a few cookies for an old baseball. I even pricked my finger trying to repair the stitching that burst along its bruised side. Why would I remember something as silly as that? Strands of hope. We keep them safe, beneath our beds, tucked in the back of closets. The sock puppets, the colorful bottle caps, the crayon nubs. Where do they go? All these pieces of childhood. Oh, there goes my cell phone again. I know it's my kids. They've lost their father. Mark died at the nursing home this morning. Truth is, I lost my husband years ago. It had been quite some time that he no longer recognized me. When Mark and I were first dating, Sonny always seemed to be underfoot. My brother would pull out his checkerboard and play with Mark for hours, Sonny laughing at Mark's corny jokes. Maybe that's why Mark let Sonny win almost every game. Sonny, moving across the living room floor, always dashing around, his body trying to catch up with his racing feet. I can see him. He pushes up his PJ sleeves before they slip back over his pudgy hands. He straightens his sheriff star as he races forward. His feet get tangled in the long PJ bottoms. I catch him before he falls. I always did. Or at least I tried to. Why can't I just stay with the memories in that small living room? Those nights when it was just me and Sonny. Of course I would have liked Mom to be there too. It's hard to say today, honestly, what I felt back then, being so young and left in charge. I just know that somehow I managed to push aside my worries for a few hours each night. Maybe because Sonny would gallop around in circles while his favorite Western blared on the TV. Or because you could smell the salt from across the room as he devoured potato chips. Oh, potato chips were his favorite. Potato chips! That's what I forgot to add to my grocery list. Oh, the list is growing. Bread, eggs, milk, potato chips. I will not ask my kids to take me to the store anytime soon. Soup from the back of my freezer should defrost by dinner time. That'll do for me. I remember orange linen. The curtains hanging over the living room window. Mom made them. At night, I would pin the seams tightly together. I remember pockmarks, the fluorescent lights from the walkway outside seeping through the holes in those worn drapes. Voices from the landing slipping into the living room. Foreign words, heavy accents. Who were these neighbors? Were they always shouting? Or did they seem scary to me because I was small? A child doesn't always know whether an adult is angry or afraid. To little ears, sometimes the yelling and moaning from grown-ups sound the same. Oh, the sounds Mom made after Dad left us. Sonny was only a baby. Reaching for the knob on our rented TV, but the volume doesn't go any higher. The brown matted carpet scratching against my stomach, we settle onto the living room floor, the TV eating up our last quarters. A soft light, the glow from the TV on Sonny's pale face, angelic, like one of those paintings you see in church. He props his dimpled chin in his hands, bare feet knocking against mine. The ceramic bowl between us, greasy crumbs of chips left at the bottom. The tired fan, its metal face ticking side to side, watching over us as if ready to warn off an intruder. Can anything prepare us for dangers ahead? Boot camp, deployment to Vietnam. Of course, Sonny was the first to enlist. I was furious. I suppose my brother going to war was inevitable, wasn't it? There would have been no draft deferment for him. Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, the DMZ, the jungle. Oh, the jungle, Jem. Oh, no. We didn't have a jungle gym, slides, or swings in our playground. Oh, sometimes my mind is fuzzy. These distant memories meander and mingle with later ones. No, we had animals in our courtyard, just off Taylor Street in Little Italy. In the center of our housing projects, there was a big square lined with giant sculptures of animals. Animals! The grizzly bear, the ox, the big horned ram. The younger kids climbed the smaller statues of coyotes and sheep. Sonny and his pals had their place on the lion cub. I see him sitting near the lion's head. He's 11, and I'm 14. His friends would fall into place behind him. They'd squeeze together, their legs wrapped around the statue's thick belly. At the top of the square sat a massive bull. He lorded over our courtyard. Who could forget those bulging eyes? They followed me everywhere, nostrils permanently flared. But it was the older kids who dominated this statue. They played cards on the bull's back, shouted dirty words at us kids below. They even spat at a toddler. Poor little boy. He was only chasing his ball. Even as I sat with other girls in our own corner of the courtyard, I always had a sense of where Sonny was and what he was doing. One summer morning, my friends and I passed around fashion magazines and a bottle of red nail polish while whispering reports of neighborhood gossip. I looked over to the bull, waiting for those bigger boys to take their place. An hour, maybe 2, went by, and the bull stood bareback and alone. Sonny nudged his pal and tipped his chin toward the bull. He jumped off the lion cub and slowly swaggered up the square like a soldier. Along the way, he nodded at the younger kids on the bear statue, waved at the little girls sitting below the antelope. "Sonny, where are you going?" I yelled as I clutched the bottle of red nail polish. I would love to say that Sonny stopped and walked toward me, but he didn't respond. Instead, he marched forward. His bent arms swung side to side as if he was punching away at some invisible obstacle. The girl next to me grabbed the bottle of nail polish. I had only finished painting one hand. "You better not use all that polish for yourself," she snapped and began painting her nails. I wanted to sock her, wanted to tell her to go to hell, but I held my tongue and picked up one of the magazines instead. Sonny moved closer to the bull. One of his friends pulled at his shirt sleeve, but Sonny kept walking. There isn't much you can do or say when a child is determined to have his way. At least that's how it was with Sonny. When Sonny grabbed the thick horns of the bull, I dropped the magazine on the concrete and stood. Funny, because that bossy girl who grabbed the polish from me, well, she put down the bottle and stood too. Even the kids shooting marbles stopped to see Sonny. My little brother hoisted his legs around the head of the bull. His buddies pushed him further up the animal's neck. Sonny shifted and scooted until he was sitting tall at the bull's shoulders. His friends cheered so loud I would have sworn they could be heard for miles. But Sonny was too busy looking to the side. The older boys had entered the square. They were James Dean wannabes, not much older than me, wearing white t-shirts and jeans, hair greased into pompadours. They looked like they were trying to be in a movie, but the knife they pulled out was real. They headed straight for the bull. I don't remember what I said, or if I even said anything at all. I know that I tried to run towards the front of the courtyard. My girlfriend Connie held me back. The boy with the knife led the gang closer. Sonny gripped his legs tighter around that bull. He leaned over the side of the beast as if dodging the nasty words flying from the mouths of those bigger boys. As I stood next to Connie, she said, "Would you look at Sonny?" Connie was 12. And for her, Sonny had always been my pesky little brother. Now she had the nerve to gaze at him the way an actress regards her leading man. Connie then asked, "Does Sonny have a girlfriend yet?" Some might say she sounded dreamy, but all I heard was a whiny noise. I yanked my arm from Connie's grip. Sonny grabbed one of his friend's hands. One by one, he pulled each boy to the top of the bull. I couldn't believe how the older boys just stood there, frozen in place, jaws dropped. They slowly backed away. I remember something gnawed at me, not jealousy, perhaps fear. But those boys didn't come back, so what exactly was eating away at me? One of those warm Chicago summer breezes passed between the apartment buildings and through the courtyard. Thick, white clouds moved over the blazing July sun. I followed the dark shade as it shifted across our animal court, starting at the bottom with the lion cub and bear statues. The darkness passed slowly over the middle of the courtyard where our magazines and bottle of nail polish lay. The shade then inched its way to the top of the square. When the clouds finally cleared, I held my hand to my forehead and squinted my eyes. There was Sonny, sitting tall, shoulders back, chest out, and one arm in the air. My little brother looked like he'd just wrangled a bucking bull. All he needed was the cowboy hat and lasso. Why didn't I ever ask him how he felt at that moment? Connie and her long eyelashes. She was still staring at my brother. Her hands were folded under her chin. I wanted to smack her pouty lips. Why does this still bother me, even today? I should make myself another pot of coffee, but my doctor wants me to cut back. Can't imagine what the good doc would say if he saw me smoking these cigarettes. Ugh, that monstrous bull in our animal court. Sonny's buddies huddling behind him on the beast. They laughed and slapped my brother on the back. Did his pals in Vietnam slap his back too? I don't recall the exact moment Sonny got down from the bull. I do remember that I sat close to Connie. Her hand shook slightly as she began brushing thick red polish over her nails. I flipped through a magazine and waited. Connie plunged the brush back into the bottle. She slowly stroked the brush over her thumbnail when I knocked my elbow into her hand. A red streak of polish ran along the side of her thumb and onto her white blouse. The girls laughed, pointing at the stain. Connie blushed. She looked toward the bull, but my brother was already back on the square. Was I too harsh with Connie? We go through great lengths when it comes to protecting family. And when it came to Sonny, I could be brutal. Oh, for Christ's sakes, the ringing cell phone. Whatever happened to the days I could simply take the phone off the hook? Those days when the receiver dangled from its long, curly cord in our kitchen. Dinner time. Mark at the head of the table. The kids wedged in, elbow to elbow. I'd circle around, refilling milk glasses, reminding one of the kids not to talk with their mouth full, offering another helping of dinner. Why didn't I ever take a place at the table? There must have been room for me. I can still feel the weight of those heavy table leaves. I'd haul them into the kitchen every night from the front closet. I still feel the sweat trail down my back as I wriggled apart the small table until it filled the entire kitchen. Why didn't I ever ask the kids or Mark for help? It wouldn't be more than 10 seconds after I put the receiver back on the hook that the phone right away would ring. Calls from the kids' friends. Old friends, new friends, neighbors, relatives, people from the senior center, strangers. Oh, God, those condolence calls will be coming soon. Oh, I'm definitely not answering. They'll want to stop by with tuna casseroles or coffee cakes. Mark called it funeral food, though he was never one to pass up a free meal. Mark. I remember him tossing a baseball with Sonny. My brother would bend his knees and crouch forward, holding his frayed mitt ready for the next catch. And he'd smile when Mark called him Sonny the Great. It was like my brother was back on the bull in our animal court. That's how Mark made him feel. That confidence. Whenever Mark rang our apartment doorbell, Sonny would dash past me. Before Mark even crossed the threshold, Sonny would jabber on about school or the latest Cubs game. Oh, Sonny adored Mark. Is that why I married him? Today the call from the nursing home came well before sunrise. Since then, I have already cleaned out my utensil drawer, polished the furniture, and folded my laundry. I tried to watch the news, but everyone is screaming at each other, building border walls, cars mowing protesters over. Brings back too many memories of all the Vietnam protests. Terrible time. Mark would spout off his opinions back to the television. I'd go into the kitchen, light a cigarette, and stare out the window. Nothing was going to bring Sonny back. Cardamom, cinnamon, curry powder. Oh, yes, I remember that one time I made an Indian dish. Too spicy, Mark said. He belched as he left the table. Fennel, marjoram, oregano. What about knitting, painting, or even golf? Mark teased. Alphabetizing spice drawers and medicine cabinets don't count as a hobby. Mark's dementia progressed so quickly I couldn't let him out of my sight. Parsley, peppercorns, poultry blend. Poultry? Does this go under P or in a separate category along with the Greek spice blend? I can still see Sonny sitting across from me at our old kitchen table, his dangling legs knocking against the side of the wooden chair. I hear him sigh, but I take my time. One by one, I line my crayons along the table just above my scratch paper. Blue, orange, purple, red, yellow. Oh, and green. Of course, that one goes after blue. When it's time for dinner, I scoop all the crayons into the empty cigar box. As I uncover the sandwiches Mom left wrapped in the fridge, Sonny shakes his head. He asks, "You're really going to do all that with the crayons again tomorrow?" I ruffle my brother's hair, then cut the crusts off our white bread. I hide the brown ends at the bottom of the trash, covering the dry bits with crumbled newspaper. Why would I do that? Back then we'd eat just about anything. Oh, the neighbor's dog is barking again. Just across the hall, but sometimes that yipping is so loud you'd think the pup was right outside my door. My front door. Did I double-check that it's locked? Yes, the knob is locked, and so is the deadbolt. I don't need any of my kids barging in. Usually I like when they pop over for a visit. Not today. Yes, the knob and the deadbolt are both locked. The day before Mark left for college, He popped over for a visit. He passed along his mitt to Sonny. My brother placed that mitt on the center of his bedroom shelf, just under the hopeful eyes of Ernie Banks. Sonny had clipped pictures of his favorite ball player from newspapers and magazines and hung them next to his Cubs pennant. Whatever happened to those clippings? We still have no idea what Mom did with his clothes that were left behind, hanging neatly in his closet, when she got the news. The t-shirts and jeans folded in drawers. The comic books on his nightstand and baseball cards stacked on his shelves. His sheriff's star. Finally, the coffee is ready. One more cup will be fine. A few splashes of cold cream, too. I really need to organize all these snapshots covering my fridge, overlapping and slipping beneath the round magnets. Class pictures of my grandkids, their family vacations, their pets. Too many to frame. Why don't I have any pictures of Mark? My kids must have some. It's different with Sonny's picture, though. My only photo of my brother. Was something pinned to Sonny's shirt in that picture? How can I not remember? It's been sitting in a gold frame on my dresser for over 50 years. Even when we had that attic fire all those years ago, Mark ushered the kids out, but the first thing I grabbed was Sonny's picture. Oh, that's right. Sonny's shirt was unbuttoned. No sheriff's star, but I can see his dog tags. They hang over his bare chest. He looks too thin. His unruly curls have grown out of his military cut. Oh, this old frame, chipped at the corners. After all these years, how could I let my brother's picture sit in something I picked up at a rummage sale? But look at you, Sonny. Standing with your 3 new pals. The camera caught all these GIs just as you told another one of your jokes. How I miss my brother's laughter. I can see Sonny in some remote Vietnamese village on the edge of the jungle. He's teaching the local kids to play stickball. The game takes a turn when one of the little boys begins whacking Sonny's calves with the stick. I can hear Sonny's laughter now, see him tousling the little boy's thin black hair. I can imagine the pranks he'd play on the guys during their late-night card games. There are stories that Alan, one of the soldiers in the picture, told me. Stories I keep close. Stories that push the words of that telegram further from my memory. Hostile gunfire in the jungle. Words of deep regret and sympathy. Extensive search. Remains not recovered. A hero. The telegram. It arrived on a quiet Saturday afternoon. The very next day I called Mark and told him yes. I kept the telegram and the news about Sonny to myself for a few more days. To this day I can't recall how Alan found me. I can still hear the dishwasher humming as I sat in my kitchen table with him. I reached over my protruding stomach, 8 months along with my first pregnancy, and took the black and white photo from Alan. I curled my toes, bit the side of my cheek, but the tears still flowed. My chair scraped against the yellow linoleum as I quickly stood and turned toward the sink, a hand on my lower back. Alan, my brother's friend, I leaned into his open arms. His hand gently stroked my hair. I let myself be swallowed by the strength of Alan's shoulder, let myself be consumed by his embrace. For that single moment, I let myself hide. I can feel now Alan's wool sweater against my forehead. I can still smell the woodsy scent of his aftershave, his clean-shaven cheek brushing against mine, still hear Alan's voice whisper in my ear, "I miss him too. I loved him too." Years of buried sadness climbed up from the pit of my stomach. All at once I was a wailing baby, a broken-hearted teen, a woman missing her little brother. When it was over, Alan was left with a wet sweater. I was catching my breath, snorting and laughing through my tears. Alan dried his eyes. He was the first grown man I had ever seen cry. He offered me a handkerchief and led me back to the table. He lifted my feet onto his lap. His thumbs kneaded into the arch of my foot, and he said, "I did this for every one of my wife's pregnancies." His fingers pressed firmly on the top of my foot, and he added, "Trust me, you'll love it." Beyond the swollen ankles, I saw the brown nail polish chipped on my toes. Alan held my calloused heel in his large hand. He moved my foot in gentle circles. This man was my brother's friend. He marched with Sonny, ate with Sonny, wrapped his arms around Sonny. I slouched into the kitchen chair and rested my head back. Alan said, "I've heard all about you, how you took care of Sonny when you were kids." As I stared out the wide kitchen window, Alan pressed each of my toes and continued, "Sonny told me about the animal court." His soothing voice became a murmur. I gazed out at the front lawn that Mark cut. I heard birds chirping. A neighbor walked by with her dog. Our streets were quiet, but it was almost 5:30 p.m. Husbands would be pulling back into driveways and parking cars in garages. The throbbing in my feet and calves was gone, a relief I hadn't felt in months. Alan stretched my foot. When he pressed my toes into a pointed position, it occurred to me, Mark would never do this. I wonder now if I asked, would Mark have taken my tired feet into his bare hands? Why didn't I ever do the same for him? The sun is too bright at this time of day, flooding my apartment and nearly blinding me. A few hours with the curtains drawn. I remember suddenly sitting up straight in that kitchen chair across from Alan. I thought about the college fund Mark started for the baby, the nursery he painted yellow, the crib he assembled, the lion, bear, zebra, and elephant dancing around the mobile hanging over the baby's bed, our animal court. I yanked my feet from Alan. Standing up, I felt dizzy and held the edge of the table. I searched for a reasonable excuse. Why couldn't I say, I am lost and hurt? Why couldn't I tell Alan, you've eased my pain? Instead, I merely glanced at my watch and stammered, look at the time. At the door, I thanked Alan for the photo. Our heads nearly bumped as we hugged quickly. Why didn't I ever see Alan or even speak to him again? Regrets. I should have asked, demanded, that Mark set his beer aside, turn off the late-night TV and come to bed with me. Did I let the constant presence of kids, carpools, and housework distract us from what may or may not have been said? Let the silence fill the empty space between us? I regret the ease of acceptance. Maybe Mark had no regrets. These last years, his mind erasing all memories of his past, of me. Just how long does it take for that cell phone battery to die already? I can still hear the pings from all the texts and missed calls. Nothing like my old computer. I pulled the plug from the wall this morning when all those emails started pouring in. Would have thrown the whole thing in the closet if the monitor wasn't so heavy. A hand-me-down from one of my kids over 10 years ago. Last Christmas, they tried to give me one of those fancy laptops, but they have children of their own, and everything is so expensive these days. This old computer has been just fine, though the keys stick and the screen freezes. This old computer is good enough for me. More than enough. Mark proposed right after Sonny left for boot camp. On one knee, he promised he'd give me the world. He had a steady job, just bought a new car, was ready to place a down payment on a home in the suburbs. But I told him I needed time. Sonny had just left and Mom would be on her own. Why did it take so long for me to give him an answer? My aching back is telling me it's time for another Advil. A tall glass of water, probably a good idea, too. That afternoon in the kitchen, Alan's warm hands rested gently on both my feet. His brown eyes looked directly into mine. I can still feel his gaze move deeper, past my own eyes. Softly he asked, "Who takes care of you?" Why did I rush Alan out of my house that afternoon? Why couldn't I answer him? Maybe a little sunlight now isn't such a bad idea. When was the last time these curtains had a proper wash and press? A good project for tomorrow. But just look at the dust floating in the sunlight and settling on my hardwood floors. My kids once threatened to send me a weekly maid. Mom, you don't need to scrub floors on your hands and knees anymore. They'll never understand. It's the only way. Someone once said a strong person compromises rather than makes a fuss. Maybe it was the other way around. At any rate, I compromised. Instead of a maid, I let them buy me a swifter mop. And there it sits in the back of the hall closet, unopened, behind my bucket and sponge. I'll start with the bathroom floor. The bathroom. After Sonny climbed the giant bowl, I caught him in the bathroom mirror, using Vaseline to slick back his hair. He had rolled a pack of Mom's cigarettes into his white undershirt sleeve. I ripped the cigarettes out, nearly tore off his whole sleeve. I huffed and growled. Crushing the pack against the bathroom sink, I smacked the back of his greasy head. Why would you want to be like those boys? My slick hand was red and burned. Don't you know they wanted to hurt you? Sonny slowly raised his head. I slid away a thick strand of hair that was glued to his forehead. At that moment, he was more afraid of me than those boys with the knife. Sonny cried as I marched him to the kitchen. Sliding 2 chairs up to the sink, I scrubbed his scalp under the kitchen's rusty faucet with dish soap. Dish soap, can you imagine? Even with the soap, it took 2 weeks to wash all that heavy, oily goop out. I thought it was a miracle that Mom never noticed. It wasn't until I raised my own 6 kids that I finally understood how hard it can be to keep tabs on everyone all the time. That night I read another story to Sonny. Like every other night, he'd fallen asleep before I finished. These hardwood floors are worse than the bathroom tile. Wringing out this wet sponge isn't so easy anymore. It's my arthritis. But these floors? Ugh, filthy, filthy. Sonny, I scrubbed your head so hard with dish soap that your scalp burned. Your red eyes were stinging. I yelled at you, hit you so hard that you almost knocked your head against the sink. You forgave me for yelling and shampooing your hair with dish soap. You always forgave me. You don't find many people in life who will forgive you no matter what you do. Forgive you and still love you. Sonny, why? Why did you leave me? My dear Mark, all the years, all the silence, all the compromises, you stayed. My Mark never failed. I'd be washing floors down on my hands and knees like this, and one of the kids would run by tracking in dirt, and you would catch my eye and shake your head, your lips curving slightly downward, trying not to smile. Or perhaps it was the other way around. Lips slightly up, trying not to look concerned. I dipped my sponge back into the bucket of soapy water. Your patient voice. That even tone as you say to me, "You're going to do all this over again tomorrow. Aren't you, Rita?"